Okay, tell me about basic training and.
Well, we went to, or I was sent down to Texas and had in Camp Hood. There's still a Camp Hood now.
Yeah.
Maybe you've heard the name. And there was an infantry train on one side and tank destroyer on the other. And I got put in the infantry. And you had, well, it's going to be an 18-month thing. And then they had trouble over in invasion of a lot of casualties. So they lowered it to 15 months. So we had 15 months of training. Then we got our leave and came home for 7 days.
15 months, you mean 15 weeks?
Yes, right. Yeah, 15 weeks. And had to.
So you came home, and then.
And then I caught a train. The service put us on a train, and we went out to California and went to what's called Fort Hood. That's where an infantry training unit was. And we went there for, I lose track of the number of days. We were there for a while in Fort Ord and taking some more further basic training. And then we went to, up to, doesn't matter, I can't say the name right now, further up near
Near San Francisco? Was that where you were?
Well, no, up the river. I want to say Savannah. That doesn't matter. It's a capital. Can you tell me the capital right now?
Sacramento.
Sacramento. Yeah, the river ran up to Sacramento. We went. We were based there for a short bit, waiting to be sent overseas, and just about the time they were going to send us over, I was with young men that I knew from basic training. And we went on bivouac, and some kind of a bug burrowed under my skin and caused a rash. And just before we were about ready to go overseas, we were there a few weeks, they said anybody that has any sort of a body rash should go to the doctor, because they didn't want to get you on the ship with it. And if I'd known anything, of course, I wouldn't have gone, because they sent me to the hospital, and then just at the same time sent my unit overseas. So when I got out of the hospital, which wasn't 2-3 weeks, whatever it was, I got put on a ship that there was a gigantic troop carrier. And I got put on that, and I didn't know anybody on it. I didn't know a soul on the ship. Well, I can tell you an interesting thing about that too. And we were on this ship. We shipped out of Sacramento, down the river and out to the ocean and down to New Guinea. And it took us 2 weeks. The Japanese didn't have submarines in that area, so they zigzagged all the way down to New Guinea. Took 2 weeks. We got down to New Guinea, and it was so dangerous then to go up to the Philippines where we were going to go. They had to wait for a convoy. And so then we went in the convoy up to the islands. But on the ship, there were supposedly 4,000 some troops on it. That's all it was on. It was troops, a great big troop carrier. And here we'd been going to basic training. Of course, we were doing a lot of exercise and probably getting calories of who knows how many calories a day. Let's say 18,000, that wouldn't be, probably more like 36,000 or something like that. Got put on this darn troop ship, and they didn't have time to feed it more. You'd get in line in the early morning, stand in this enormous line that was, and eat a meal, and almost come out and get in the line again and eat. You only got 2 meals during the day, and there you'd been taking in all this calorie, and boy, you thought you were starving to death on that darn ship because you only had these 2 meals on the ship. And I really got in trouble on that. So there were 2 guys in our department of the ship where we had all these bunks, and they were set up, and they'd get apples and bananas and bring them down. We're supposed to give them out to us. Well, they sold them. We didn't, the rest of us didn't know. And I found out they're sold them. I told some guy, as I say, I didn't know anybody before I got on the ship. And I told some guy I slept in a bunk. You were in bunks. I'm serious. You could hardly turn over in it if you were. I don't know if you. And I told him that, boy, those guys ought to be reported to the officers. And they told some guy, and this guy came up to me and said, listen, he said, we're out here, and we were out in the middle of the ocean. He said, it's awful easy to fall overboard. And I'll tell you, for the rest of the trip, if I got up on deck, I was right along the ship inboard, and the rail was clear over here, and I was scared to death. I was.
Well, I've heard horrendous stories about those troop ships. Just you're crammed in together. The latrines.
You couldn't turn over in the bunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the heads were.
They were a trough, and then the ship would roll, and you'd be sitting on this trough, and the water rolled down. And what was terrible, when we went out, we came down the Sacramento River and got on this big boat, and they fed us hot dogs and beans. And I can't believe yet how the size some people swallow those. They looked like turds on the deck, and they'd be that long that they'd swallow these, and now they're throwing them up all over the ship, and it was a filthiest mess. And as I say, you couldn't believe anybody'd eat a hot dog that big. And I say 2 meals a day, and you got hungry, and you stood in line most of the day waiting to go down to the meal, and
Then get back in line.
And then get back in line. Yeah.
So,
And seriously, the bunks, you could turn over, but the guy, they were canvas, and so they hung down a little bit, and to roll over, you'd still be rubbing against his body, or on the bottom of his bunk, to roll over and walk, and it was pretty unpleasant a trip. And as we were on it a month, we were on the boat for a month.
So where did you end up after the month?
Well, as I say, in 2 weeks we ended up in New Guinea, and we waited for a convoy at a day or two, whatever it was, because then they were in an area where the Japanese were pretty heavy, had submarines and things. And so we got in this convoy with destroyers and so on around it to protect it from the outside, and it took us 2 more weeks. If you ever look on the map, you'll see how how far it was to New Guinea, and then relatively how close the Philippine Islands were to that in relation to this. So it took 2 months to go that convoy trip, because you went the speed of the slowest. Right. And this thing, they supposedly the big ship that took us all the way over to New Guinea was 34 knots or something like that, and we got in the convoy that 8 knots maybe, and so it took us forever to get up to the Philippine Islands where we were going.
And so where in the Philippines did you go?
Well, we went right into the Manila Harbor by Bataan, if you've read anything about, and Corregidor, the island, and names that even I, as a young man, knew some of those names there, and were put in what they call a replacement camp outside of Manila, and waiting to be replaced in whatever divisions needed to replace for the casualties they were having. And